and let Anna take it away. Thank you, Anna.
All right, good morning. Thank you. And hello, everyone. If you joined us yesterday, we were working on hips and a little bit of shoulders. We're going to move on down to feet today. If you've followed along any of my practices before, you probably know that this is an area that I am very, very keen on, and you might find some benefit today. So we're going to be doing a functional feet class. I did mention grab a rolled towel or a folded up towel or blanket. We need that just for a little bit of a prop. So how many of you actually think about your feet as part of your exercise program or movement? A lot of times we are in shoes, or we're doing everything else, moving everything else, but we're not thinking about our feet. So I'm going to encourage you to take your shoes off. We're going to get some things moving here today. And these are going to be great things that you can practice taking into your garden season, especially if you go from wearing lots of shoes most of the time or supportive shoes most of the time, and then you go into your garden in your flip-flops or your sandals or your bare feet, just helping that transition back and forth. So you're just going to come to standing first. And we're starting simple today. You're just going to wiggle your toes. So you're going to try to kind of lift them up off the floor and back down. And this might be the start of a fun and frustrating experience if you don't spend a lot of time moving your feet. So maybe your toes are moving up and down, maybe they're not. And then you're going to try to spread them a little bit. So you're going to see if you can take your toes away from each other. So the big toe moves towards your midline, your pinky toe moves in the other direction. You're just trying to see if you can lift and spread those toes. So one of my feet wants to cooperate. The other one is a little bit of a work in progress, let's say. So kind of lift and spread those toes. All right, now we're going to come up and balance on our toes. So we're going to work on bringing weight into different parts of our feet. So my head might disappear a little bit as I go up. You're going to press into the balls of your feet and lift your heels. So we're doing a bit of a heel raise or an ankle elevator. And you may notice, if you really fall forward, if your weight's trying to go forward, let's see if we can just press it up and get that little bit of balance. And yes, your calves might be getting tired. So we're going to take care of that in a second. All right, we're going to do our first calf stretch. So you're going to take your towel or blanket, and you're going to line yourself up in front of it so that you can step one foot on your blanket or your towel and the other foot can have some free space. So you want to be able to have that other foot able to move forward. And you're going to take your ball of your foot, place it on the front of the towel or the dome, whatever you're using. And you're going to let your heel stay down on the ground. So it's creating this angle for your ankle. So this is an ankle dorsiflexion. This is the movement of bringing the top of the foot towards your shin. So closing the angle of your ankle. So we're hanging out here. If you feel a stretch down through that leg, you can kind of stay where you are. If you're not really feeling it, maybe you bring your other foot a little bit more forward and start to intensify that stretch. So the more the opposite leg moves forward, the more angle is created in your ankle if you keep that leg straight. So you can try stepping forward a little bit more and see how it feels. You're going to find where it feels like you've got a stretch moving down through your calf, but you're not trying to manage your balance or don't feel like it's as tight as possible and you've gone into your deepest stretch ever. We're just looking for somewhere in between. Take a breath, relax your shoulders. So you've been in your first calf stretch for maybe 30 seconds or so. Let's step back and you're just gonna take a couple of steps or pick your feet up off the floor and just see how that leg feels. And then we're going to slide that over, or you can move yourself over to the other side. So your right foot now is lined up in front of that dome or that towel, and you're gonna step up into your first gentle calf stretch on this side. So my heel is down, all my foot's propped up. And then I'm going to maybe step this supporting leg or the other leg a little bit more forward to increase that stretch on the right side. So if your calves were starting to get a little crampy in our heel raises, this probably feels like a nice break. All right, we're gonna step back and then we're gonna come into that one more time on each side. So repetition though was nice. Line yourself up there. Step yourself up. I'm gonna make my roll just a little bit higher to get a little bit more of a stretch out of this. So the great thing about using a towel or a blanket as your prop is you can sort of fold a little bit more distance up and make it bigger if you need to. So again, you're just gonna stand here, let the weight kind of stay centered down into your heel. So if you feel like all your weight is squishing the towel or the blanket under your foot, you can back your pelvis up a little bit. So it's not backing up the top of your body. It's shifting from here back just a little bit to bring the hip a bit more over the ankle. We'll see that on the other side. So I'm just taking a breath. And lower your shoulders a few times and just notice if you're staying really tense while you're in your calf stretch. Do you feel the shoulder rolls that we did yesterday? Okay, give that a break. Maybe you start to feel a little bit of circulation in the back of your knee or something on that side. Let's set up on the other side. Maybe your towel is a bit higher. You could just be repeating the same height that you were in. And then I'm going to talk about that stacking here because you can see this leg now. So as I step more forward, I'll have a tendency to kind of shift my pelvis more forward to maybe try to increase that stretch. So I really want to back that up a little and let my hip stay a bit more over my ankle. And if you do that little shift back and forth, you may feel a little bit of a change in where the weight sort of is resting down through that leg. Maybe you feel a different contact point under your foot. But we just want to encourage a little bit less squishing of our foot on the front of the dome or the blanket. And then you're going to lift and lower your shoulders on this side. Sometimes one leg is easier than the other. So maybe you started holding your breath or getting really tense on one leg, but the other one didn't do that. Okay, we're gonna step out of our calf stretch. And I want you to just take a couple of steps around. So maybe walk to one end of your mat and then walk to the other end of your mat. Maybe you don't have a mat, so a couple of steps would be fine. And then we're gonna come back to our toe yoga. Or maybe that's what lots of people call it. Toe moves, whatever you wanna call it. Let's see if we can just let our weight rest down through our feet. I want you to think about the contact point underneath the ball of your big toe. So where your big toe attaches. I want you to think about a point underneath your pinky toe and then a point on your heel. So we're going to imagine that triangle of points on your foot. I guess like this, if we were to go front way. This is your heel, and this is across the front of your foot. You're gonna let those rest down on the mat, and then I want you to think about lifting and lowering your toes again. So we're keeping nice, good contact. And as you lift your toes, you may even feel like they spread a little bit on their own, just to try to keep those points of your feet on the floor. So one of the reasons we're talking about toe moves is because a lot of us are wearing shoes that have a little bit of a heel. We might be wearing shoes that are really narrow in the front or more narrow than the natural splay of our feet. And so when we actually walk and do other things and our feet need to kind of move and morph, oftentimes we're squishing our toes in there because we've got them in a container that doesn't move along with them. So prepping your toes for garden time, prepping the front of your feet and maybe even parts of your feet that don't get that loading, you're still lifting and lowering here, can help a little bit to prepare those bits of your body that haven't been moving that way. Okay, now we're gonna try to spread our toes. So you're gonna take your big toes towards your midline. You're gonna spread your pinky toes really wide. You're gonna see how your feet respond. You're going to keep all 3 points down in contact with the floor. All kinds of foot stack going on here. All right, and then you can let that go. Oh, give it a little shake out. Okay, now we're going to try lifting and lowering just one toe. So it's important for our toes to move independently as well. So I want you to look down and get your feet positioned so they're not really close together. So if you were standing with your feet a little bit closer together than your hips in the last little moments, I want you to widen them a little bit. And now we're going to think about keeping all 3 of those points down on the floor for our right foot. And now you're going to see if you can lift just the big toe. And then let it down. So now there's other work going on with the other toes trying to stay resting on the floor. And you may notice those other toes digging in and gripping the mat like an eagle talon in order to help you lift that big toe. If you notice that, then this might be one of those things that you want to kind of include in some of your practice. All right, I've had all my frustration on my right foot. I'm going to give that a little shake out. And then bring those feet back to the same spot. I'm going to move to the left foot. So same thing, you're lifting just your big toe. So we want to leave the other toes down. And if you're watching my video for this foot, you'll notice this one is more of a suggestion of a move. My toe doesn't want to lift quite as much. A little bit more work to do on this side for me for toe mobility. So again, thinking about all 3 points of your left foot staying in contact with the floor, noticing if the ball of your big toe is trying to roll up and off the mat in order to lift that toe. You might notice your fingers, doing the same thing to try to help your brain move your toes. All those things are just something to notice. Put a little pin in it for your practice list. All right, let's lift into our ankle elevators a few times. So just lifting up, letting your heels settle down. Whew, okay, we're gonna come back into that calf stretch. So I'm gonna go to my half dome, just in case anyone has one around and wants to use it. We're gonna set ourselves up in front of this again. So we're square to our dome. So if before you were sort of a little bit on an angle, I want you to set yourself up facing that. And you're gonna step yourself up. And then you're gonna bring your other foot a little bit more forward and find the place that feels good for your calf stretch. And then we're gonna do another little check-in. So Try not to squish our dome. Pay attention to the weight on the front of your foot. Can you back it up a little bit? Right, now we're gonna check in with that square. So we squared ourselves before we stepped into our calf stretch. Now you're gonna bring your hands onto the front of your pelvis, so you can bring your hands to the front of either side by those hip bones. And you're gonna notice, is one shifted more behind you or more in front of you? In other words, are you rotated in either direction just a little bit? And if you are, I want you to see if you can do that little shift back to square. And you may notice that that changes a few little spots of the pull in your calf stretch. So these little adjustments seem tiny, but when we're trying to get some loading to all the little bits and fibers of our muscles and connective tissues that might not get that all the time, then paying attention to these tiny little adjustments can give you the chance to find those spots that maybe aren't moving as well or feel a little bit stiffer, or a little bit tighter, and give them a little bit of attention. All right, you might feel like your ankle is on fire. Maybe you feel some blood flow up through the front. Let's take those few steps to the front and back of our mat again. So just a few steps forward and a few steps back. And then we're going to line up and do the same thing on the other side. So when we stepped into our calf stretch, we stopped to make sure that we were lined up roughly square to our towel or dome. And bring the ball of your foot up, let your heel rest down, stepping the other foot only far enough forward to really intensify that little bit of a feeling in the calf. So kind of maybe towards the top, in towards the knee, maybe you feel it more down into your Achilles. We're all going to be a little different. Push the front of your foot down. So if you can see the imprint of your foot on whatever you're on, try to shift your pelvis back just a little. And then we're going to do the same check. You're going to bring your hands to the front of your pelvis and see, are you slightly rotated in one direction or the other? So especially if you stepped into this and found a spot that didn't move so well or felt really tight, then your body might have done a little tiny shift just to take a little bit of that force away, just to make it a little bit easier. Try to let the front of your leg relax, see if you can let your thigh relax. Asking so much today. Okay, one more breath, and then we're gonna walk to the front of our mat and walk back. So you can step out of your calf stretch. Feel a little bit of that blood flow, maybe feel the front of your ankle. All right, and then we're going to do a top of the toe stretch. So we're going to work in the opposite direction now. If you have that towel or blanket, this is a really nice doubling for some cushion for the top of your foot. So now we were thinking about the 2 points across the ball of our foot, underneath the big toe and underneath the pinky toe. Now we're gonna think about that same line across the top of your foot coming down onto your cushion back there. So you're gonna stand, you're gonna pick up your right foot and you're gonna step it back. And you're gonna bring the top of your foot down on the mat or on the blanket. So I don't have my toes down on there. I don't have just the tops of my toes. I've reached my foot back far enough that I'm really trying to bring the top of my foot down on there. And you'll notice my knees are bent. If you want to intensify this, you can start to straighten up, but that depends on you and what feels right. If that feels excruciating on the front of the ankle, your toes, top of your foot, I want you to just stay in that knee bend, where you can actually sit on a chair and scoot one sit bone over to the edge, hold on, and reach a leg back into this. Whew, okay, notice if you're holding your breath, because you might be if it's intense. And then we're gonna pick that foot up, and you're gonna step forward, and you're gonna see if you can do your lifting and lowering of your toes now on that foot. So we started with the frustrating stuff. We're doing a little bit of work. We're gonna see if we can make it a little bit less frustrating to move those bits. Okay, top of the toe stretch for the other side. So same thing, you're setting yourself up just in front of your towel or your cushion. If you're doing this on a hardwood floor, your foot's automatically just going to dislike you this morning, so be a little bit nice to it. It's bony. Bend your knees. Try to bring that line across the top of your foot down onto the blanket or the mat. And maybe if you've got a little bit of space to go, you can start to straighten up a little bit. Pretty tight on that side for me today, so I'm just trying to find a balance. If you've never done this one before, it can be intense. All right, let's step forward. Whew. Now your left foot is going to lift and lower your toes. So we're going to see if maybe that little bit of lengthening across the top of the foot, waking up our calf, allows us to have more access to the movement in our feet. So this is one of the points where I'll remind you that not all movement of your feet is only dependent on the muscles in your feet. There's also a lot of muscles that connect outside of the foot, and one connection is inside of the foot. So those can be really influential too. So let's go back to our calf stretch. So I'm just going to alternate now between the calf stretch and the top of the toe stretch. So I'm going back to my left foot. Setting myself up square, stepping up, maybe I'll make that a little bit higher. Step my other leg forward a bit more. So we're hanging out here in our calf stretch. Now, one of the things I want you to think about is we've already thought about square to our dome or our towel. We're going to check in and notice if the front of our foot is really squishing down the front of our dome. We're going to back that up a little bit. We're going to check in and make sure that we haven't changed that square. And now I want you to notice if that ball of your big toe and underneath the ball of your pinky toe, so those 2 points where they connect to the ball of your foot, can you feel both of those spots on your dome? Or are you feeling your foot lift and roll out to the side? So there's more weight on the outer edge, or maybe more weight on the arch side. If you notice any of that, I want you to try to adjust your foot on the dome so that it's even. So you're not tipping in, not tipping out. So we're looking at ankle pronation and supination in that one, if you like the technical terms. Okay, step forward. And now you're going to go right into your top of the toe stretch. So you're going to step back with that same foot. We're going to bring that line across the top of your foot on your nice cushy surface there. And then you're going to come into your standing top of the foot stretch. And I want you to look down. You can have a look at your heel. Is your heel shifted off to the side, changing that weight distribution across the top of your foot? If it is, can you adjust that? Whew. All right, you're going to step that forward. Let's just take a little forward hold. So you can come down halfway or you can come down all the way. Bend your knees and let's come up. We're going to do the same sequence on the other side. So we're going to our calf stretch with our right foot. Line up square, step your foot forward, slide your supporting foot into that balance position, wherever that is for you. Let's notice if the weight is squishing our dome down. We're going to back it up. We're going to even out the weight distribution across your foot. So from the big toe over to the pinky toe side. So that's where you get to notice if this ankle has started to maybe roll out or roll in as part of your calf stretch. And just make whatever adjustment you need to change that. Just step a little bit more forward, a bit more stretch. Take a breath, and then you can reach down or you can just step forward, whichever makes sense. And we're going to get ready and step back for the top of the foot stretch on this side. So right foot goes back. You can get yourself into the position to start with. So maybe you're straightening that leg up, maybe it's still a bit bent. And then you can have a look down at your heel and just use your own visual indication of whether your foot looks like it's in the position that your brain thought it was when you put it there. And if it isn't, can you adjust to get that weight distribution even across the top of the foot? You'll notice this stretch might come all the way up into the front of the hip and the front of the pelvis. So now we're tying that back to yesterday's hip moves, working on a little bit of that, and some of the things that you find in class today will be a really great way to prep those bits for the mobility you're going to need in your garden. Let's step forward now. And also just starting to get some bits moving that might not be when you're sitting all day. So let's go to our toe spread. Toe lift on your right side. So you're going to see what's changed now that we've done the work on our calf and done a little bit of work on the front of the ankle. And now you're going to lift and see if you can spread your toes. So both feet, you're going to abduct your toes, abduct, moving away from the midline. Although really the big toe is moving towards the midline, but that's a different discussion. Okay, let them go. You're going to try that 2 or 3 times. Has it gotten a little bit easier than the first time you tried it? All right, then we're going to try the lifting one toe. So you're lifting your big toe, trying to keep those 3 points on your foot still connected to the ground. You'll see my thumb moving, trying to help out my toe. And then let's go to the other foot. So still not a lot of movement, but looks like things have warmed up a little bit and I might have a tiny bit more participation than I did at the beginning. Okay, now you're gonna press up into the balls of your feet. So we're gonna do our ankle elevators again. Press, 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 press. You're gonna just hold yourself here for a second or two. Can you hold your balance? Are those toes nice and connected to the ground? And let yourself come down. Come on up. You can use the wall for a little bit of support if you like. So pressing up, seeing if you can get up on the balls of your feet without falling forward. And one more. All right, come on down. We're gonna want a nice calf stretch after that. So you're gonna grab your dome and we're going to do a double calf stretch. So going for gold in the last moment, everyone. You're gonna step up with both feet. And this might mean you have to hinge forward a little because otherwise maybe you're falling backwards. So now that's what you're gonna do. the hinge that we learned yesterday, you're going to find that little bit of a hinge. So your pelvis moves back a little bit. Your upper body's going to move down relative to your thighs. We're going to keep a nice long spine. And you can come down as far down into that hinge as it feels comfortable. Use your hands to support your upper body on your thighs if you like. And then you're going to come up as far as you can go. Maybe that's going to take the stretch a bit more down into your calves. And then you're going to come back down into your hinge one more time. And you might feel that stretch kind of travel its way up more into the hamstrings. And then you can step out of that. And I'll encourage you to take steps towards one side of your mat for the very last time in today's class. And then we're going to go back to the other side of the mat. You can kick your toes up, have a little fun for the day, and maybe think about one or two of those things that we practiced today, incorporating that into like 3 times a week, 5 times a week, maybe a few minutes of a break from work. Don't often think about it, but if you don't have a lot of opportunity to move, you might still have the opportunity to take your shoes off and do a little bit of fun. Thanks for joining today, everyone.
And thank you, Anna. That was great. I hope everybody else enjoyed it. Join us tomorrow a little bit later. So that's good news at 9 a.m. for flow yoga. Slow yoga.
Yes, we'll do a little slow flow. So, come in your pajamas and we'll get you moving.
And that's the good news about having the cameras off. You can just show up and whatever. And if you missed yesterday's, please go see our website or the Hen YouTube channel. I'm going to put both in the chat and you can see yesterday's recording of Anna's. Oh, sorry, it's all mashed together there, but I should have had a space. Please check out Anna's yoga session from yesterday, and please join us again tomorrow. And we have a full day, as I mentioned, coming up. So join us at 10 a.m. for how to create your own pollinator garden from start to finish with Donna Lang. And then at 12, we'll be making seed balls and starting native seeds in winter. So winter sowing at 12. At 1 p.m., it's all about rain gardens. At 2:30, it's reimagining community with Selena Long from the Milton Public Library. And then at 4 p.m. is peat use in horticulture and peat-free alternatives to save the planet. So that's a nice one to end the day on. So we'll see everybody later. Thank you very much. And thank you, Anna.
You're welcome. See you tomorrow.